We are word in your attic with bass player extraordinary, my man about town, friend of the pod, Guy Pratt. Hello, Guy.
Splendid.
Hello.
We join you.
Ripple of applause.
What you describe as your content factory.
Tell
us about that.
And it is literally an attic, so it is my attic. This is one of the kind of good side effects of the lockdown. Is that this is a room I sort of built as it's half my studio and half room for my teenage son to have his gatherings, which is the worst possible combination of rooms imaginable.
With a lot of incredibly expensive equipment around, so
not that much,
which could be in danger.
Exactly. Well, it's only now actually because I've only used because I used to do lots of because I used to write music for TV and stuff and do a lot of songwriting. I haven't done any of that for years, so I've got this lovely recording set up, but I only ever use it to put songs in and learn to play the bass along to. So, but I have actually been doing these YouTube videos, so it's finally come into its own. And because my missus, Georgia Bing, she wrote the Molly Moon books, which are very popular children's books. And so her contribution to the lockdown is she's been reading a chapter a day and putting them up for free for kids. So, and also doing video recordings downstairs. So we have become a content factory.
And you've been doing these
Dean
fantastic...
Street on Sea.
Yeah, you've been doing these brilliant lockdown licks broadcasts, which I've seen, which are fantastic, which are you playing some of your great bass lines, Another Brick in the Wall and Like a Prayer.
Yeah, no, which has been really good fun. It's very funny, actually, because I actually go into the comments and can be really rude to people before they get a chance to be rude to me, because the problem is I've asked people for requests, but then people don't seem to realize it's like, oh yes, I always like that song. It's like, don't ask me something that hasn't got any fucking bass on it, or any bass that isn't interesting, or something that no one's ever heard. You get so many of these stuff, so I'm actually going to have to stop the requests. But it is fun. It's been way more popular than I thought it would be. So,
and you would have been doing your Nick Mason Saucerful of Secrets tour, wouldn't you? Which has obviously sadly been postponed. So just tell us a little bit about that. That's the kind of psychedelic period, isn't it?
The psychedelic period. Well, it's the most fun, fresh thing I've ever done, I must say, in that because I know everyone in the band. It feels like a band. I mean, for all my various Pink Floyd associations, having played with all of them, this is, I've only ever played 3 of these songs before that we do in the set. Most of them I've never played, and some of them have never been played. Pink Floyd never played. So it's like fresh. So it feels like it's Pink Floyd when it was a pop group,
right?
Before it became the vast faceless obelisk, so it's kind of it's to me it feels like the rehumanizing of Pink Floyd, if you like. And yeah, it's annoying because at the moment I get messages every day from someone going, "I was going to see you in Ipswich tonight." It's like, yeah, all right.
What can I do about it?
So tell us the lineup. So it's Nick Mason, obviously.
Nick Mason, obviously. Gary Kemp, who's pretty much my best friend, has been for years. We've written 2 musicals together, in fact. And Lee Harris, whose idea it was, who's my old mate, who was the guitarist in the Blockheads, who was actually also their manager and everything, and was just a sort of general beloved Soho character. I'd known him for years. And then Don Beacon, who's a very, very old friend of mine who worked with me for years. When I had my studio, he used to be my programmer and engineer and everything. And he worked for Rick for years. I got him he set up Rick Wright's home studio and looked after him and everything. And then when Rick died, the family sort of kept him on to look after the archive and everything. So Don Beacon is that absolute rarest of people, which is someone who knew Rick Wright.
He was a difficult man to get to know, was he?
Impossible. Well, it might have been one of you who wrote. It was a great thing in an article once said, every band has its quiet one, but if Rick was any quieter, you'd have to put out a missing persons.
I can't claim that, but I wish I could.
No, yeah. I think let's claim it anyway. Yeah, he had good and bad days, didn't he? I had dealings with him. Odd fellow. Yeah.
He just wanted to be on his boat. Just wanted to be on his boat out at sea, away from everyone,
Yeah. So are you finding loads of, you're well plugged into the kind of international fraternity of musicians.
Yeah.
How are you finding they as a breed are dealing with this current situation? I mean, you're obviously you're missing your gigs, but
I'm missing my gigs. But the funny thing is that I think for a lot of us musicians and a lot of people in the creative industries generally, everyone's going, "Oh my God, this whole thing about how to look after yourself at home or mental health when you're home." It's like we're just like, what?
Yes,
what
this is what I do.
This is what we do for a living.
That's what people don't realize. 60% of my life has been on the fucking sofa in my pajamas. It's really not a big deal.
Yeah. What was that?
So that's my phone.
Is that your phone, Google?
Oh, right.
Plays the Deliverance theme. The dueling banjos. I haven't found it. I'm actually finding the days fly by. I mean, financially it's not ideal. There is that, but yeah, I really don't have a problem with it. It's actually made me kind of. I mean, like I said, it's got me up here. It's just not a problem.
Right.
I mean, have you gone? My family's all nearby. Everyone's safe, and being by the sea. I mean, I really feel for people who don't have the luxury.
Absolutely.
Like I said, there was a great some Australian comedian did a video about thank you celebrities. It's like I just finished 14 hours in A&E, and it was great to see you in your vineyards telling me how it can.
We've been to support the nurses. That's right.
Mark and I have been talking about the great opportunity this has given us to see inside the homes of fabulously wealthy rock stars. I don't know if you've seen the podcasts or the video casts of John Fogerty and his family. Have you seen those?
No, I haven't.
This is our absolute favourite, where he's in his back garden with an open fire and his kids all toasting marshmallows, and they're playing Green River by Creedence. Behind them is literally the whole of California. you imagine most of it is owned by him. And it actually makes you feel really miserable. You go back to your humble abode and think, damn, if I'd only worked harder.
I must just say one thing. We were recording this just slightly earlier than we normally do.
Yeah.
And I normally say to Alex, who helps organise these things, with musicians, they'll go through all kinds of privations, but they won't get up early in the morning. You're not one of those people, are you?
No, because I mean, obviously, I was famously, I was a total kind of hooligan for years. I didn't become a father till I was 40, but of course, being a musician, that means I've been treated like a child for my entire life. So I probably only had the emotional maturity of a 25-year-old then. So it's probably a perfect time to become a father. But it was only then I realized that you get up in the morning. Literally, I had no idea. I just thought, why the fuck do people do this? I mean, I don't have a job, and why would you get up in the morning? Then you have a kid, and you realize, well, that's why you get up in the morning. And then I started and then I wake up, and now I wake up, and there's nothing I can do about it.
This is it, because it's bred out of you. I think fatherhood, parenthood, breeds lying in out of you.
I can't do it.
You always think when they grow up, I'll go back to lying in all morning. No, you don't.
No, you don't. No, you still wake up at 6 o'clock. Exactly.
No, but even back when I was still, having mental nights, you still wake up at 8. Because that's the thing I never used to understand with David on tour. Because David could party with the best of them, but he'd be up at 8.
Because he had kids.
Why? Because he had kids, and it was just even if they weren't there, it's just what happens.
Yeah.
But now I'm up. I do my prescribed exercise every day, and so yeah, I'm usually running along the seafront at this time.
Oh well,
something I always hated when I first moved to Brighton. Right, this is the thing that annoyed me more than anything. That you would go and look out your window. I've always lived on the seafront, this is my third house here, and you could look out the window at 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning with a hailstorm going on, and someone is running down the front. But always, it's like, what are you doing? It was the most maddening thing.
That's very Brighton. People swim from the marina to the pier.
Every day, yeah.
Every day. I mean, that's a long way.
Every day, but every day someone swims, and every day there's someone on the nudist beach, no matter what.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm terribly envious of you because my wife, my parents, no longer with us, used to live in the Drive in Hove, which is where the statue of Queen Victoria is above there. They lived about a mile up there, and
it's about the widest road in Britain.
It is.
It's incredible. It's extraordinary.
He used to get it in retirement. He used to get up every morning, walk down all the way down the Drive, look at the sea for half an hour, and then walk back. And then in the evening, he would do the same thing. And I used to think when I was young and foolish, why would anybody want to do that? Now I can't imagine anything I'd rather do.
Absolutely.
Dream about it every night.
Look at the sea, you know what I mean? Because it's good for your soul, definitely.
Well, it's true. Well, it's always doing something.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's never ever boring. It's always doing something. It's either raging Wagnerian torrents or mill pond calm.
Yeah.
It never disappoints. And now we have this amazing wind farm out at sea.
Oh right.
Oh yeah, you can see the tips of the propellers, can't you?
And they're all lit at night, and it's so sci-fi. It feels like living on. It's like a new life off-world.
Yeah.
And you have that amazing tower, don't you? Which kind of the thing like a donut that goes up a tower by the old West Pier. Oh, it's called the donut. Oh, right.
Well, no, it's actually called the British Airways i360, but we call it the donut. Well, there was a great thing in The Guardian about it when it opened, and which had one of my favourite opening lines from an article ever, when it just said, once every 100 years, Brighton builds something mad. It's true. 200 years ago, it was... 200 years ago, it was the pavilion.
The pavilion.
Yeah.
100 years ago, it was the pier. And now it's this thing. And but again, it's so sci-fi. It's, I love it.
Have you been using the time to go through your possessions? Many people have done this, particularly people who've got loads of records or kind of, I don't know, music memorabilia. Have you been going through things?
Rearranging my Nazi bookshelf.
I wasn't thinking of that. Just more like, why have I got 5 copies of this? Or, old tour T-shirts or God knows what.
Well, luckily, do you know what I did do is just before when I've realised the implications of the lockdown, and I had this little idea. I thought maybe I should do something to do with bass, but not because people have suggested bass lessons, but I can't do bass because I don't really know. I'm still a punk rock chancer, really, and so I went to my lockup and I got out my old basses, the ones that I don't use, the ones that I played on things. So the things I do have here are, I managed to get quite a few guitars in here. So I've got a couple of guitars I could show you, which aren't necessarily ones that are associated with me.
Oh, okay. No, it'd be fun to see them.
Yeah.
I always like to see kits. People like to see kits.
Were they used on particular recordings?
What's that?
Were they used on any particular recordings?
Most of them were. This wasn't. Now this.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
This, it's a Fender Six, which is meant to be a 6-string bass, but it's not. It's actually a baritone guitar. This was Mickie Most's.
Oh, what?
And,
when he was a pop star, presumably.
Well, the story is I bought this off Stephen Hague, my old friend, the producer. And
right, yes.
And what's annoying is apparently I've played it on a record, but neither of us can remember what record it is, because this used to be hanging up in the office at Rack Studios. One of the great things, because what used to be fantastic about working at Rack was you go in there and Mickie Most was just lying on the sofa watching telly all day, every day. And you could go in and ask him, and he'd love to tell you. And he had this thing hanging up, and I've got a picture of John Paul Jones with it in 1965. And apparently John Paul Jones used to play that on Sessions. You can hear it on the intro to Sunshine Superman.
Oh, hold it up again. Hold it up again. So we can all go away and listen to Sunshine Superman.
Yeah, the first thing you hear is this. First thing you hear,
which was produced by Mickie Most, wasn't it?
Oh,
that's right. Yeah.
And when I got it, it was white, and I saw it had this beautiful seafoam green color underneath it. And I tried. I did one of those really foolish things. I got some guitar guy to try. I said, "Can you try and strip it back to the original finish?" And after 5 weeks, and I suddenly realized it's going to cost as much as a yacht.
Yes.
So I just said, "Look, just refinish it in the original color," because people used to refinish guitars all the time back then. No one realized that the value that things were going to have. So
I suppose
everything has to be bloody original.
Do you acquire much stuff like that? Are you the kind of person you're right?
I'm not really a collector. I mean, the funny thing is, the one that's been used a lot on my lockdowns. For instance, this is my 1987 Spectre NS2. Right. Okay. And now this is the back, because I used to use this for anything I did with an octave pedal, right, which was my trademark in the 80s. So this is the bass I played on Like a Prayer and on Earth Song, and it features in Pulse and in Delicate Sound of Thunder, I think, or there might be my black one. And I've tried to get rid of it twice. It's ridiculous. On the last night of the '94 Pink Floyd tour at Earl's Court, I gave this to my tech. I was just drunk and I was just giving everything away for some reason. I got handed some award for the tour and just gave it to my sister. It was, I don't know what was going on. I was drunk. But yeah, I gave.
You couldn't just do your one-line Madonna impersonation, Kenny, which is so
time
fun.
is money and the money is mine.
which of course makes for a very relaxed atmosphere in the studio.
Nice. Exactly.
So your tech
hilarious.
Gave it back to you, did
No,
he?
no, he
Felt
didn't.
better about it.
No. My tech, bless him.
He sold it.
I won't name him. Well, no, it was. He then had he went on to work for McCartney for years, right. And he's done great, and he's fabulous, Syd. But he had a couple of really lean years, and this thing was hanging on his sort of front room wall. And they were skint or whatever, and his missus, and he doesn't play the bass, and his missus is just looking at this thing going. so
that's a big pile of cash.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So to his credit, Syd called me up, said, "Listen, Guy, I'm going to have to sell that bass." And the thing is that I was given it. I'd never paid for it. It was I was in Pink Floyd. If I wanted a bass, all I did was call the company, go, "I really like your basses," and they give you them. So. Right. So I never paid it. So I bought it back off him, which was great, which actually meant it finally had some value.
No, definitely.
You know what I mean? That was just because also I'm one of the few, but I didn't realize that the annoying thing is about being given basses is I feel a lot about that you obviously can't sell anything that you've been given. And apparently most musicians don't feel like that. I didn't realize that there's this whole lot of guys just get stuff and then they just flog it, which I find horrific. I mean, I've given a few basses back. When I've got something I realize I'm never going to use it again, I will actually offer to give it back to the company.
Right.
But then I put it in an auction a couple of years ago, one of those showbiz auctions. And luckily it didn't sell because now I've got it. It's just like, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, it's been so useful for these videos.
Yeah. This is... you learn, there's certain things you're never supposed to be parted from.
No, exactly. I mean, it's good. I know it's annoying that you have to be told. I've got one other thing, which is a new thing, which is actually literally only just come out the case for the first time.
Oh, right. It's an unboxing. Very good.
Recognize this?
Oh, good grief. Wow.
It's an exact replica of Syd Barrett Squire.
Oh, wow.
Oh, right.
Good grief.
That's beautiful.
Anyway, which was a present from Nick Mason.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So has he commissioned a few? Has he?
He commissioned a few. Yeah. Well, he gave them to Gary and Lee, and in fact, they both played them for. I think it was for Astronomy Domine or Lucifer Sam when we played the Roundhouse. Then he said, "Look, Guy, I've given them something. What can I give you?" And I thought, I said, "Well, give me one. I want one.
I want one."
So
if you could have one bass in the world, is the simple. One that you'd have?
Very simple. It's Betsy.
All right, okay.
This one. This
right.
is my beloved favourite ever bass, 1964 Burgundy.
What recordings has Betsy appeared on?
She's somewhere on pretty much any album I've ever done.
Right.
She would have been on a couple of songs on the Like a Prayer album. Ain't No Doubt by Jimmy Nail. She's done She's always been my Top of the Pops bass. She's been on hundreds of Top of the Pops.
Right.
It's a Delicate Sound of Thunder. It's what I played the solo on Money on, the one that David cut from the later years box set.
But you're not bitter.
Not bitter at all, no. And it's one of those funny things, isn't it? I was kind of ashamed about it for years, about that solo, and but then apparently it's really popular. That it's especially amongst Brazilian jazzers.
All right.
And if you go on YouTube, there's loads of people do it. They showed this is me play Guy Pratt solo from, especially the one from Venice is the best known. And it was the most requested thing for my YouTube licks. So I had to learn the bloody thing again. Which is, but yeah, but what, and to, you know, I won't see David. We're going for a walk after Sunday lunch. He just said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "As the later years going," he said, "Well, you're not going to like it very much. I've cut your solos." I was like, "What? Why'd you do that?" And he said, "Well, they're just 280s." And it's like, I mean, he's got a point, but if you're surely the whole point of a box set is to be complete.
Yes.
It's like, it's what happened. Yes, obviously now I'm absolutely indignant.
Yeah.
I couldn't have cared less a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to doing most when this is all over?
Well, just going back on tour, you know, because we had this whole tour. We were literally about to go on tour, and it's touring with this band is so much fun, you know, and it's and for all the right reasons. It's like I said, I mean, the thing, I've said it a million times, but I still love the fact that this is the first time in his life that Nick Mason has ever slept on a tour bus.
Oh, really?
Because they basically went straight.
How's he coping with that? Is that all right?
He loves it. He's brilliant. He's brilliant at it. I mean, the thing that is funny generally when we tour is the hotel, right? I mean, the funny thing, Gary and I complain way more about any of the hotels than Nick does. You know, Nick, it's all, and but what you don't realise, the stuff that's kind of invisible when you're used to touring with a sort of massive band like with Floyd or whatever, is that what you don't realise is that when you're staying at the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton, they have this whole security team who are used to dealing with stuff, which is why we have our security guy, but that's why you don't see anything, because the hotel has because they have politicians and, you know, various dignitaries coming to stay. So they have all this stuff in place anyway, which the Doubletree by Hilton doesn't.
Absolutely.
So you get this weird thing of suddenly just having hundreds of people all over the hotel, and all Barry can do is keep them away from Nick, but you can't keep them away from the hotel. So that's all quite funny.
Do you think there'll be other musicians? It's quite interesting. Somebody like Nick, he's obviously got to the point in life where he thinks, I may as well do this stuff while I can, kind of thing. You know, let's take an interesting bit of what I've done in the past and let's put together a band. Let's go on the road. Do you think there'll be more of that kind of thing?
Well, it's a lot of it's to do with the sort of comfort level, isn't it? It's a matter of if you're prepared to take it on the chin and go, you know, Nick's really, really happy for someone like Nick. He loves going and playing theatres again and actually being reconnected with an audience. I think a lot of people might find that hard. When I did the Coverdale Page thing years ago, for instance, and there was meant to be this big arena tour of America, but it just wasn't really selling. So then it got downgraded to sheds, and then it was going to be theatres. And I was like, yeah, fine, it'd be great. Fucking hell, playing Led Zeppelin songs with Jimmy Page in theatres. Amazing. Yeah. But David Coverdale wouldn't have it. Jimmy was like, yeah, that's fine, because he's Jimmy Page. And he's already Jimmy Page, and he's always going to be Jimmy Page, and no one can ever de-Jimmy Page him. Right? Whereas I think for David Coverdale, he'd worked so hard and got himself up to Whitesnake, to that arena place, that he couldn't come down from it.
Yes,
So I think some people might have that. So it depends. It depends how. If who you are is set in stone, then you can go and play anywhere. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, you know, I mean, David only plays theatres when we go on tour, Roman amphitheatres. That was the funny thing. That was the funny thing when he, you know, when I said, I just want to play Roman amphitheatres. It's like, all right. The problem with that is
there aren't very many of them.
There aren't very many of them. They're all actually really quite close together in this one central area of Europe. And they tend to not be in capital cities. So it's our 2016 tour. The itinerary actually looked like a Ryanair schedule.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It's like, it's sort of Verona. It's not quite Verona, but it's this other place.
Well, look, it's been an absolute joy to talk to you, Guy. What are you doing for the rest of the day?
The rest of the day, I'm going outside for my prescribed exercise.
Right.
And I'm going to start working on my next lockdown lick, which is going to be, I'm going on to a big favourite of mine. I'm doing the Toy Matinee album, which is the project I did with Pat Leonard, which is what spawned the Tuesday Night Music Club that Sheryl Crow was born from.
Oh, of course, Tuesday. Yes.
Not so well
that's
known
going
over here,
back, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, but I get more kudos for this album from American musicians than anything else I've ever done. It's my Velvet Underground.
Just to explain the Tuesday Night Music Club, because that was a track on her first album, wasn't it?
The album was called Tuesday Night Music Club.
Oh, right,
it came from, and it was legendary producer, engineer Bill Bottrell, who did Like a Prayer and who'd done this album project with me and Pat Leonard. It was Pat Leonard's idea, called Toy Matinee. And then he had this little studio out in Pasadena, and he had this thing on Tuesday night because our singer, Kevin Gilbert, started going out with a girl who I knew, who I'd met when she was Michael Jackson's backing singer, Sheryl Crow.
Right.
And so they started this thing on Tuesday night. They'd all drink tequila, get drunk, and everyone would play different instruments, and they'd just muck around. And after a while, they'd written this album. And Sheryl had already done an album. She had a big deal with it. And she'd done a big sort of posh Hugh Padgham-produced 80s record. And then they came out with this other thing. This whole scene kind of stemmed from this band, Toy Matinee.
So presumably we can find that in the usual streaming services.
You can, yeah. But like I said, I mean, when I met kind of Dre's musicians and all the guys from Beck and everything, they're just like, whoa, Toy Matinee, dude. So
we should also mention your fantastic Twitter feed, which is so fun.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I don't know if anybody watching this hasn't seen Guy's Twitter feed. It's brilliant. You put
I was in the Pope this morning. I got picked as one of the 21 best responses to the Stay Alert message.
Oh, did you?
Right.
Yeah, which was
fantastic.
Which is where I just said, phew, COVID-19 just pulled up next to me in an old Saab and asked me if I wanted to go to its house and see its puppies. But luckily, I remembered the government advice to stay alert and started.
I love the bits of wisdom you put in. You put in the other day something like, if pasta and antipasta collide, do they attain infinite mass and create a black hole? That was just absolutely superb.
That's a really, but those are great fun, those ones that people post when there'll just be some sort of hot YouTube, some Twitter model just going, what am I thinking? You just go, mate, that's like a politician posing with a green screen. You're just asking for it, aren't you?
Guy, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks so much, Guy. That
was
fantastic.
A pleasure. Anytime, anything else you want.
Great.
I'm not going anywhere.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you, gentlemen. Really good to see you.
Lovely to see you. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.